Marcus Johnson stepped through the revolving doors of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse at exactly 8:15 a.m., his Italian leather briefcase in one hand and his phone in the other. The morning sun streamed through the towering windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floor that had witnessed countless moments of justice over the decades. He was early, as always, a habit ingrained from his days as a junior associate when arriving late meant losing credibility. The case he was about to argue would make headlines, but Marcus had no idea that the real story would begin long before he even reached the courtroom. The courthouse itself was an imposing structure, built in the 1930s with the kind of architectural grandeur meant to inspire respect for the law. Marcus had walked through these doors hundreds of times over his 15-year career, but today felt different somehow. Maybe it was the gravity of the Patterson case, or maybe it was the phone call he'd received from his mentor the night before, reminding him that some battles are won not just with legal precedent, but with the courage to stand firm in moments of unexpected challenge. At 34, Marcus had built a reputation that spoke for itself in legal circles across the nation. Harvard Law School graduate with highest honors, youngest partner at the prestigious Preston & Associates, and the legal architect behind some of the most significant civil rights victories of the decade. His track record was flawless: 47 cases won, 0 losses, with settlements totaling over $200 million for his clients. His reputation was unshakable. His client list included Fortune 500 companies and civil rights organizations alike. The New York Times had called him the conscience of corporate law, while Legal Eagle magazine had featured him on their cover as the new generation of civil rights champions. His success hadn't come easy. Growing up in Detroit, Marcus had seen firsthand how the justice system could fail people who looked like him. His father worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, while his mother cleaned office buildings at night to pay for Marcus's SAT prep classes. Every achievement in his life had been earned through determination, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief that the law could be a force for good when wielded by the right hands. But as he approached the security checkpoint that morning, none of that mattered. Not the degrees on his wall, not the cases he'd won, not the respect he'd earned in legal circles. All of that became invisible in an instant. Security Officer Sam Rodriguez looked up from his coffee and immediately focused on Marcus. While dozens of attorneys had passed through the checkpoint that morning with nothing more than a friendly wave and a good morning, something about Marcus made Sam stand up straighter. "Excuse me," Sam called out, his voice carrying across the lobby. "Sir, I need you to stop right there." Marcus paused, sliding his phone into his jacket pocket. He'd been through this courthouse security more times than he could count, but something felt different today. The way Sam was looking at him, the tension in his shoulders, the way he positioned himself like Marcus was a threat. "Good morning, Officer Rodriguez," Marcus said, reading the name tag. His voice was calm, professional. "I'm here for the Patterson civil rights case in courtroom 4A. Sam didn't seem to hear him. "I need you to put your bag on the table and step back." Marcus looked around. Attorney Sarah Mitchell had just walked past the security desk without even slowing down. James Wilson, another lawyer Marcus knew, was chatting with the receptionist while his briefcase sat unexamined on the side table. But Marcus was being singled out. "Of course," Marcus replied, setting his leather briefcase on the metal table. "No problem at all." Sam opened the case and began pulling out files, one by one with the methodical precision of someone looking for evidence of wrongdoing. Legal briefs for the Patterson case, case precedents from landmark civil rights decisions, witness statements carefully organized in manila folders, copies of federal statutes highlighted in yellow and pink. He examined each page as if looking for contraband hidden between legal arguments and constitutional interpretations. Other attorneys walked by, some glancing curiously at the unusual scene unfolding at the security checkpoint. Marcus could see the questions in their eyes. Why was he being treated differently? What had he done to deserve this level of scrutiny? Some recognized him, and their expressions shifted from curiosity to concern, then to an uncomfortable recognition of what they were witnessing. Patricia Williams, a prosecutor Marcus had worked with on several cases, slowed her pace as she passed. She caught Marcus's eye and raised her eyebrows in a silent question. Marcus gave her a slight nod that said, "I'm handling it," but she lingered near the information desk, clearly uncomfortable with what she was seeing. "What exactly are you looking for, officer?" Marcus asked, maintaining his composure even as Sam began examining individual business cards as if they might contain secret codes. "Just doing my job," Sam muttered, now pulling out Marcus's laptop, his legal notepad with handwritten notes from late-night case preparation, even his pens, expensive Mont Blanc pens, that had been a gift from his law school graduating class. Sam examined each item with suspicious intensity, turning the laptop over as if checking for hidden compartments, flipping through the notepad as if legal strategies might conceal criminal plans. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus, and it cut deeper than he cared to admit. Here he was, a man who had dedicated his entire career to fighting discrimination, watching it unfold in real time against himself. A man who had spent countless hours in courtrooms arguing that people should be judged by their actions rather than their appearance, now being subjected to exactly the kind of profiling he fought against professionally. But Marcus had learned long ago, through painful experience and hard-won wisdom, that battles were won with patience and strategy, not anger and confrontation. His father had taught him that lesson during his teenage years in Detroit. "Son, you can't fight every battle with your fists or your voice. Sometimes the most powerful response is to stay calm and let your character speak for itself." "I understand you're being thorough," Marcus said, checking his Rolex, another symbol of success that seemed invisible to Sam at that moment. "But I do have a hearing in 20 minutes. A federal civil rights case that's been on the docket for 8 months. Sam continued his search, now examining Marcus's business cards. "Marcus Johnson, senior partner, Preston and Associates," he read aloud, his tone suggesting he didn't believe what he was seeing. What Sam didn't notice was the small leather wallet tucked into the briefcase's side pocket, a wallet that contained credentials Sam had never seen before, credentials that would change everything. As Sam continued his unnecessary search, Marcus remained calm. He had dealt with worse than this, but today, Sam Rodriguez was about to learn a lesson he would never forget. The briefcase contained more than just legal documents. Hidden in that side pocket was an FBI honorary consultant badge, the Department of Justice Special Advisor ID, and a letter signed by the Attorney General himself, designating Marcus as a federal civil rights investigator. "Everything seems to be in order," Sam finally said, though his tone suggested he was disappointed not to find anything suspicious. "Thank you for your thoroughness," Marcus replied, beginning to repack his briefcase. As he did, he deliberately let the FBI badge flip open, just for a moment, just long enough for Sam to see it. Sam's eyes widened. "Wait, is that—" "Yes," Marcus said simply, closing the badge and tucking it away. "It is." The color drained from Sam's face. In all his years of courthouse security, he had never seen an FBI consultant badge, and he had certainly never subjected one to a full briefcase search while letting dozens of other attorneys pass without question. "Sir, I didn't know," Sam stammered. "Of course you didn't," Marcus said, his voice still calm. "But that's exactly the point, isn't it?" Other security officers were beginning to notice the commotion. Marcus could see them whispering, pointing in his direction. Word was spreading fast through the courthouse grapevine. "Look, Officer Rodriguez," Marcus continued, "I understand you were doing your job, but I want you to think about something. This morning, you've watched at least 30 attorneys walk through this checkpoint. How many of them did you stop?" Sam couldn't meet his eyes. Well, how many of them were asked to open their briefcases?" "None," Sam whispered. "And what was different about me?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sam knew the answer, but saying it out loud would force him to confront something he wasn't ready to face. Marcus closed his briefcase and straightened his tie. "Officer Rodriguez, I'm going to my hearing now, but when I'm done, I think you and I should have a conversation." As Marcus walked away, Sam stood frozen at the security checkpoint. His supervisor, Captain Mills, approached with a concerned expression. "Rodriguez, what the hell was that about?" Mills demanded. "Do you know who that was?" "No, sir." Mills shook his head. That's Marcus Johnson. He's the guy who won the Jackson discrimination case last year. The one that made national news. He's also an FBI consultant and works directly with the Justice Department. Sam felt his stomach drop. Oh God. Yeah, oh God is right. He could file a complaint that would end your career tomorrow. Mills paused, studying Sam's pale face. What exactly did you do? I searched his briefcase. Completely. Every single item. Why? Sam couldn't answer because the truth was too uncomfortable to admit. He had profiled Marcus based on nothing but his race. There had been no suspicious behavior, no red flags, no legitimate reason for the search. Just assumptions. Meanwhile, Marcus made his way to courtroom 4A, where the Patterson case was about to begin. But his mind wasn't entirely on the case anymore. What had just happened was a perfect example of the systemic bias he fought against every day. The difference was, today he had experienced it personally. The irony was particularly sharp because the Patterson case itself was about discrimination. Marcus was representing a family who had been wrongfully arrested, and here he was, nearly an hour before arguing their case, experiencing profiling himself. Judge Patricia Hawkins called the court to order. Good morning, everyone. We're here for Patterson versus City of New York. Johnson, are you ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus replied, standing at the plaintiff's table. But as he began his opening statement, Marcus couldn't shake the image of Sam Rodriguez searching through his belongings while other attorneys walked freely past. It was a reminder that no amount of success, education, or professional achievement could shield someone from prejudice. What Marcus didn't know was that Captain Mills had already made a decision about Officer Rodriguez, and that decision would have consequences Sam never saw coming. Because in 30 minutes, when Marcus finished his hearing, he would discover that this incident was about to become much bigger than a simple security misunderstanding. Marcus presented his case with the same precision and passion that had made him famous in legal circles. He spoke about the presumption of innocence, about the right to be judged by one's actions rather than one's appearance. The words carried extra weight today, fresh from his own experience downstairs. Your Honor, Marcus concluded, discrimination doesn't always come in the form of obvious hatred. Sometimes it comes disguised as just doing my job or being extra careful. But when that extra care is selectively applied based on race, it becomes something else entirely. Judge Hawkins was visibly moved by the presentation. Mr. Johnson, your argument is both compelling and unfortunately timely. I'll need time to consider all the evidence, but I want to commend you on your thorough preparation. Thank you, Your Honor. As Marcus packed up his materials, his phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mr. Johnson, this is Captain Mills from Courthouse Security. We need to talk. It's urgent. Marcus frowned. Urgent? He made his way back to the main lobby, where he found Captain Mills waiting by the security checkpoint. Sam Rodriguez was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming down. I owe you an apology. Where's Officer Rodriguez? That's what I need to discuss with you. What happened this morning was completely unacceptable. I've reviewed the security footage, and it's clear that you were subjected to treatment that no other attorney received today. Marcus nodded. I appreciate your acknowledgement, Cap, but I'm more interested in making sure this doesn't happen to the next person. That's exactly why I wanted to speak with you. Officer Rodriguez has been suspended pending a full investigation. But more importantly, I want to implement new training protocols. Would you be willing to help us develop a program? It was an unexpected turn. Marcus had been prepared for defensiveness, maybe even denial. But Captain Mills seemed genuinely committed to change. I'm listening, Marcus. We want to bring in consultants to train our entire security staff on unconscious bias, proper protocols, and equal treatment standards. Your background in civil rights law makes you the perfect candidate to lead that initiative. Marcus considered the offer. Captain Mills, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but training is only effective if people want to change. Is your staff ready for that conversation? After what happened today, they don't have a choice. This incident has been reported up the chain. The courthouse administration is taking it very seriously. What about Officer Rodriguez specifically? Mills hesitated. That's complicated. He's been with the department for 8 years. No prior complaints. But what he did today crossed a line. His future here depends on his willingness to learn from this mistake. Marcus thought about Sam's face when he realized his error. There had been genuine shock there, and what looked like remorse. Maybe this could be a teachable moment rather than just a punitive one. I want to speak with him, Marcus said. Are you sure? Given what happened, I'm sure. If we're going to create real change, it has to start with honest conversations. An hour later, Marcus found himself in a small conference room with Sam Rodriguez. The security officer looked like he hadn't slept, despite it being only noon. Mr. Johnson, I don't even know where to begin, Sam said, his voice shaky. I screwed up, badly. Tell me what you were thinking, Marcus replied, his tone neutral. Sam struggled with the words. Honest, I wasn't thinking. I saw you walk in, and something in my head just, I don't know. I treated you differently than everyone else, and there's no excuse for that. But there is a reason for it, Marcus said, and until we acknowledge that reason, we can't address it. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Sam spoke again. I profiled you, based on nothing but how you looked. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I've never really thought about it before. But today, watching that security footage, seeing how I acted compared to everyone else, he shook his head. It made me sick. Marcus studied the man across from him. There was something genuine in his distress, something that suggested this might be a real turning point. Officer Rodriguez, what you did today was wrong. But the fact that you can acknowledge it, that you can see it clearly, that's the first step toward making sure it never happens again. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Sam said. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about what happens next. Captain Mills wants to implement bias training for all courthouse security. Are you willing to be part of that? Sam looked up, surprised. You'd want me involved after what I did? I want someone involved who understands, personally, how easy it is to make these mistakes. Someone who's experienced the shame of realizing they've treated another human being unfairly. That could make you a powerful voice for change. For the first time since the morning's incident, Sam showed a glimmer of hope. What would that look like? It would mean acknowledging publicly what happened today. It would mean helping to train other officers about unconscious bias. It would mean being willing to have uncomfortable conversations about race and perception, and fairness. And if I do all, then maybe this morning's mistake becomes the beginning of something better for everyone who walks through that security checkpoint. Sam nodded slowly. I want to do that. I need to do that. Marcus stood up and extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Sam shook it. There's one more thing, Marcus said. I want you to know that what happened today doesn't define you, but how you respond to it will. 3 months later, the Manhattan Federal Courthouse became the first federal building in the district to implement comprehensive bias training for all security personnel. But the real change came in the form of something unexpected, a partnership between a civil rights attorney and a security officer who had learned to see his own prejudices clearly. Sam Rodriguez didn't just keep his job, he became the lead trainer for the new protocol. His presentations to other security staff began with a simple statement. My name is Sam Rodriguez, and I want to tell you about the day I almost destroyed my career because I couldn't see past my own biases. The program attracted national attention. Other courthouses began implementing similar training. Legal journals wrote articles about the innovative approach of using real experiences to educate staff about discrimination. But for Marcus Johnson, the most meaningful change was smaller and more personal. Every morning when he walked through the security checkpoint, Sam Rodriguez would nod respectfully and say, "Good morning, Mr. Johnson." Not because he had to, but because he had learned to see Marcus as an individual rather than a stereotype. The Patterson case, incidentally, was won decisively. Judge Hawkins ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, citing the need for law enforcement to examine their own practices and unconscious biases. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that the attorney who argued the case had experienced similar bias just hours before presenting it. Marcus kept the FBI consultant badge in his briefcase, but he never had to show it again. Not because discrimination disappeared overnight, but because one security checkpoint in one courthouse had become a model for how change could happen when people were willing to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. The real victory wasn't in the courtroom that day. It was in a small conference room where two men had an honest conversation about prejudice, assumption, and the possibility of redemption. It was proof that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acknowledgement: I was wrong, and I want to do better. Officer Rodriguez kept a photo on his desk, not of his family or his achievements, but of the day he graduated from the bias training program he helped create. In the photo, he's standing next to Marcus Johnson. Both men smile. It serves as a daily reminder that everyone deserves to be judged by their character, not their appearance. And Marcus Johnson, he continued fighting cases, winning battles for civil rights, and making a difference in countless lives. But he also kept something else in his briefcase now, a letter from Sam Rodriguez, thanking him for seeing potential for growth instead of just cause for punishment. Because sometimes the most important cases aren't won in courtroom. Sometimes they're won in the simple act of choosing understanding over anger, education over punishment, and hope over cynicism. The Manhattan Federal Courthouse security checkpoint became known among attorneys as the fairest, most professional entry point in the city. And every new security officer who started work there learned the story of Marcus Johnson and Sam Rodriguez, a story about the day when a moment of bias became a catalyst for lasting change. That's what real justice looks like. Not just punishment for wrongdoing, but transformation that prevents future wrongs. Not just accountability, but the possibility of redemption. And not just individual growth, but systemic change that benefits everyone. Marcus Johnson walked into that courthouse as a successful attorney. He walked out as something more: a teacher, a change agent, and proof that the most powerful response to discrimination isn't always litigation. Sometimes it's education, patience, and the radical act of believing that people can change.